I invite you now to walk with me into the sanctuary of the psyche. That interior chapel built not with stone, but with symbols, shadows, and the silent voices of the unconscious. There are among us souls so finely tuned to the subtleties of reality that they seem not to live in the world, but through it. These are the highly sensitive people, the ones often mislabeled as weak, as fragile, as too tender for the sharp edges of life. But I say to you, they are not weak. They are oracles, untrained. Yes, misunderstood, certainly, but the very structure of their soul is the architecture of revelation. And until we learn to see the wisdom they carry in their tears, we shall remain blind to one of the oldest truths known to the unconscious. You see, the sensitive individual is not merely someone who feels more. They are the living bridge between the conscious surface and the mythic underworld of the psyche, where most people walk only on the land of what is visible. The sensitive person walks with one foot on earth and one submerged in the sea of archetypes. This dual grounding grants them sight that is often painful, often confusing, but it is sight nonetheless. The pain is not a malfunction. It is a message. In my own journey into the depths of the psyche, I have seen that the world within mirrors, the world without. The person who flinches at a harsh word is not reacting to the word alone. They are vibrating in resonance with ancient wounds inherited from collective memory, from ancestral fear, from forgotten betrayal. They remember what others have buried. They dream dreams that are not merely personal, but carry the scent of the divine. Their bodies are instruments, not merely of sensation, but of symbolic reception. The HSP is not sick. They are tuned, overtuned perhaps, but only because the modern world has lost the art of initiation. And without initiation, without ritual, without the sacred container in which to train and temper this inner oracle, they suffer, because the raw material of vision must be shaped. The shaman in the tribal village is not born in the hut and left to flail in visions. No, the community recognizes the sensitivity, the terror, the trembling, and they say, you are the one who must walk into the darkness for us. You will enter the forest of dreams and return with a map. But in our so-called civilized world, these people are medicated, ignored, or taught to toughen up. They are taught to shut the portal that opens behind their eyes. Do you see the tragedy? The very people who feel the coming storm, who sense the lie before it is spoken, who hear the whisper in a crowded room, are the ones we silence. And yet they are the vessels through which the unconscious becomes conscious. They do not choose this role. They are this role, born not to dominate, but to witness, not to shout, but to sense. And what a task it is. I once said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But for the sensitive, this privilege feels like a curse until it is sanctified by meaning, until the pain becomes purpose, until the noise of the world gives way to the song beneath it. This song is ancient. It rises from the archetypes. the wounded healer, the seer, the veiled priestess, the child who remembers the stars. These live within the sensitive. They are not metaphors. They are psychic realities, moving through the dream body of the individual. In dream analysis, I often encountered those whose dreams bore messages not only for themselves, but for the world. The sensitive dreamer is not imagining, they are receiving. Their inner life is a theater of myth, a stage upon which the drama of the cosmos plays out, but without language, without guidance, without myth to hold the madness, they drown. That is why we must restore the sacred language, the language of symbol, of metaphor, of sacred wound. We must look again at what we call weakness and ask instead, what if this is a gift in exile? The highly sensitive person is haunted often by the feeling that they are too much, too emotional, too intuitive, too easily overwhelmed. But what is this too muchness if not the psyche crying out for integration? They are absorbing the unconscious material of the collective. They are like vessels collecting rainwater in a drought-stricken land, only to be told they are leaking. No, they are holding, they are containers for what others discard. But here lies the danger. Without awareness, without the tools of the alchemist, they become poisoned by what they absorb. The oracle untrained becomes the addict, the depressed, the anxious, not because they are defective, but because they are overloaded. They feel the archetypal chaos, but lacks a map to navigate it. This is why analysis is not optional for them. It is sacred work. Through analysis, they learn to name the shadows. And when you name a shadow, it becomes an ally. They must learn that what they feel is not always theirs. This is the great lesson. The sensitive are porous. The ego boundary is thinner. And so they dream the dreams of others. They cry the tears of those who cannot. They feel the tension in a room and mistake it for their own inner storm. But in truth, they are echo chambers, they are mirrors. And to survive, they must learn discernment. The spiritual warrior in them must rise and say, I feel this, but I am not this. This is the path of individuation, not the path of isolation, but of sacred separation. The sensitive must separate what is theirs from what is of the world, and then in clarity they can return as guides, not as victims. But to do so, they must enter the underworld. They must meet the archetypes face to face. They must stand before the dark mother, the devouring father, the abandoned child, the seductive trickster. They must see in these figures not only terror, but truth, because every archetype contains the seed of transformation. The sensitive who integrates these becomes not fragile, but formidable. Let us pause here and reflect. What is an oracle if not someone who listens to the whispers of what is yet to come? The sensitive, if trained, can become precisely this. They can anticipate patterns before they manifest. They can see the psychic weather. They can guide others not with dogma, but with deep seeing. But to do this, They must shed the shame of sensitivity. They must reclaim the mythic nature of their being. It is not enough to survive sensitivity. One must sanctify it. One must build an inner temple in which to sit and receive the symbols, the dreams, the aching knowings. This temple must be tended daily, with solitude, with reflection, with boundaries, with beauty. The sensitive thrives not in chaos, but in crafted stillness. They are not meant to be thrown into the noise. They are meant to transmute it. But transmutation requires a crucible. And so I say to you, if you are one of these souls, do not seek to be like the many. Seek instead to become more fully yourself. Find the rhythm of your own perception. Listen to what the world has silenced in you. Pay attention to your dreams, for in them lies the architecture of your truth. Do not harden, refine, do not numb, discern. The world needs not more noise, but deeper listening, and the sensitive, when trained, become the great listeners of the age. The ones who remind us that soul still speaks, even in the clamor. And now we descend deeper, as all true initiates must, for it is not in the light where the oracle is forged, but in the shadows. The highly sensitive person, if they are to evolve from a raw nerve into a refined vessel of wisdom, must come to know the architecture of their own darkness. This darkness is not evil. It is the fertile soil of the soul. Without it, no transformation is possible. Many HSPs fear their intensity. They fear the grief that surges like an ocean tide, the rage that burns without cause, the loneliness that echoes even in company. But these are not aberrations. These are archetypal eruptions. They are ancient forces attempting to speak through the language of emotion. Do not silence them. Do not flee. Instead, turn inward. Ask, who is it that weeps within me? Is it the abandoned child, the unseen lover, the priestess silenced by centuries of rationalism? Every emotion is a threshold, and the sensitive are always standing at the edge of one. But how does one cross? Not by analysis alone, not by will, but by symbolic participation. The oracle must learn to speak the language of dreams, of synchronicity, of poetic unfolding. You do not solve a symbol, you live it. You dance with it. You allow it to move you, shape you, undo you. And in that undoing, you are remade. You see, the modern world has broken the bridge between the symbolic and the literal. We mistake metaphor for fantasy, feeling for weakness, intuition for superstition. But in doing so, we amputate the right hemisphere of the psyche, the feminine, the mystical, the nonlinear. And it is precisely this hemisphere where the HSP is most alive. They feel in waves, not in lines. They know through resonance, not through reason. Their truth does not march. It sings, it trembles, it bleeds. And so to ask them to live as if they were constructed of logic and detachment is to ask a harp to become a hammer, but the danger is real. If they are not initiated into their power, they may become consumed by it. The sensitive must become warrior mystics, not warriors of the sword, but of the symbol, not mystics lost in fog, but mystics rooted in discernment. This is the paradox. They must ground themselves deeper into the earth in order to hold the visions that come from the heavens. Without grounding, the visions become torment. Without discipline, the gift becomes madness. Have you ever seen someone cry without knowing why? Tremble in a room where nothing is said? Withdraw when surrounded by love? Do not pathologize it. Consider instead, perhaps they are dreaming with open eyes. Perhaps they are seeing what you have learned to ignore. The collective shadow is heavy, and the sensitive are often its carriers. They walk through the world with a psychic vacuum, absorbing the unacknowledged grief, the unspoken despair, the rage buried beneath politeness, and so they become ill, not because they are broken, but because they are full. The answer is not to empty themselves. The answer is to transmute, and for that, they need tools. They need myths. They need mirrors. They need language that reaches beyond diagnosis into the realm of initiation. The oracle must be taught that their gift is not to carry the pain, but to name it, to symbolize it, to offer it back transformed. This is alchemy. This is their task. In my own life, I encountered a woman whose sensitivity nearly destroyed her. Every room overwhelmed her. Every conversation left her shaking. The doctors said anxiety. The culture said overreacting. But in our work, she uncovered a series of dreams in which she stood at the edge of a cave while wild animals howled within. She feared the cave. She feared becoming like those beasts. But over time, she entered what she found were not monsters, but memories, generations of pain unspoken by the women in her lineage. She was not just feeling her own sorrow. She was feeling theirs. She was the voice they never had. And when she accepted that role, when she honored it with ritual and writing and solitude, her symptoms shifted. They did not vanish, they transformed. From burden to calling, this is what the sensitive must understand. They are conduits, but they are not meant to drown. They are meant to channel, and channeling requires form. One cannot contain the river without a riverbed. The form may be music, prayer, painting, therapy, silence, whatever allows the inner chaos to become outer clarity. Without this, they are swept away. With it, they become the very prophets we have forgotten how to hear. And so I urge those who walk this path. Stop apologizing for your depth. Stop trying to fit inside a culture that values numbness over nuance. You were never meant to be neutral. You are a tuning fork for the invisible. You are lightning wrapped in skin. You are the poem that weeps before the war begins. And yes, you may suffer for it. But your suffering is not your identity. It is your initiation. Let it carve you. Let it strip away what is not essential. And then let the silence speak. The oracle, if they are to survive the crucible of modern life, must reclaim their inner throne. Not the throne of control, nor of dominance, but of sovereignty. For the highly sensitive person is often dethroned early, cast out from the self, before they have words to know they are being undone. They are taught that their tears are shameful, their fears irrational, their silence suspicious. But beneath these social reprimands lies a more insidious exile. The exile from instinct. What is instinct but the primal intelligence of the soul? It is that animal wisdom that knows when danger is present, even if no threat is seen. It is a sudden knowing that a person is not what they pretend to be. It is a dream that repeats until it is finally heard. The highly sensitive person is born with this instinct, activated, but our culture does not train the instinctual. It medicates them, distracts them, converts their inner compass into a social mask. And so the sensitive learn to distrust themselves. They become alien to their own knowing. And this, my friends, is the true danger. Not their intensity, but their disconnection from the very force that could guide it. That is why I say again, the sensitive must be trained, not shaped into something else, but returned to themselves. In ancient cultures, the intuitive was not shamed, they were honored. The one who dreamed of the red moon 3 nights in a row was not sent to a therapist, they were called before the elders. They were asked to speak, to share, to interpret, to serve. Their pain had a place. Their visions were communal. The burden was made sacred. But what does the modern sensitive receive? Isolation, misdiagnosis, or worse, the command to be normal. There is no word more violent to the oracle than that. Normal is the grave of the symbolic self. And so many sensitives bury themselves there, wearing the mask of the agreeable, the polite, the quiet. But the soul does not sleep forever. It waits. It waits in the body, in the tension between the shoulder blades, in the panic attack that arrives like a forgotten storm, in the dream of the wave that never crashes. These are not symptoms. These are symbols. And the body of the sensitive is a drum constantly played by the archetypes. Each sensation is a beat, illness, a coded signal. To interpret this signal, one must become a symbolic being. One must stop asking, what is wrong with me? And begin asking, what is trying to emerge? This is the Jungian way. We do not treat the symptom in isolation. We translate it. We ask, what God is being ignored? What inner child has been exiled? What shadow has grown too large? Let me tell you this. No one becomes whole by being good. They become whole by being real. And the real self of the highly sensitive is not tidy. It is a landscape of oceans and wild animals, of lightning strikes and open wounds. But in that very terrain lies the medicine for the world. Because we do not heal through suppression, we heal through contact, through truth, through the unbearable light of authenticity. But authenticity demands courage. It demands the death of performance. The highly sensitive person must risk being seen, not the mask, but the face beneath it. Not the curated life, but the chaotic truth. This is terrifying, and yet it is the only way through. There is no redemption for the oracle in hiding. The cave must be entered. The dream must be followed. The trembling must be honored. The ancient myths tell us When the hero refuses the call, suffering intensifies. The same is true for the sensitive. If they deny the gift, it mutates. If they numb it, it festers. But when they accept the path not once, but daily, a strange and beautiful thing occurs. They begin to shine, not with artificial light, but with a glow of deep embodiment. They begin to speak in symbols, to walk in synchronicities, to listen to the winds, not just as air, but as messengers. They begin to sense when a person's anger hides sorrow, when a child's silence masks a scream, when a city's rhythm is off and danger approaches. This is not magic. This is psycho-spiritual attunement. It is what happens when the unconscious becomes a trusted companion. Let me offer you a dream. A woman came to me once who dreamt she stood at the center of a labyrinth. Around her were mirrors. Each mirror reflected a different face, a crying girl, a fierce warrior, a veiled mystic, a lost mother. She asked me, which one am I? And I replied, you are the one who sees. You are all, and yet none. The highly sensitive live this dream. Their identity is plural. Their psyche is layered. They are not one self, they are a symphony. But without a conductor, a symphony becomes noise. That conductor is consciousness. It is awareness that organizes the chaos. It is ritual that steadies the energy. It is solitude that clears the static. The sensitive must learn to become priest and poet of their own interior. Only then will their gift be radiant and not ruinous. And perhaps now you feel the shift. The descent has become an ascent. The pain, now purpose, the sensitivity, now sight. This is the metamorphosis, not into something else, but into the true form. The butterfly does not become more than the caterpillar. It becomes what the caterpillar always contained. ChatGPT Danoi? Yes. Let us now move into the final movement of this inner symphony, the culminating surge of revelation in which the highly sensitive person, the untrained oracle, rises into conscious being, no longer fragmented, but integrated, luminous, and prepared to serve. When the oracle accepts their nature, truly accepts it, not merely with words, but with the fire of lived truth, something ancient awakens within. It is as though the bones remember a language that the tongue has never spoken. It is not simply that they begin to feel better. No, healing is too small. A word, what happens is transfiguration. They no longer interpret their tears as failure, but as purification. Their silence is no longer shameful, but sacred. Their dreams cease to be riddles and become revelations. They stop walking away from their depth and instead build temples inside it. The sensitive one, who once thought themselves broken, becomes a threshold dweller standing between worlds, whispering the songs that others have forgotten. But make no mistake, this is not a soft becoming. It is not pastel and perfumed. This is soul work. This is bloody. This is what alchemy has always demanded. Not surface improvement, but death and rebirth. The oracle must die to the idea of who they thought they were, the pleaser, the appeaser, the invisible empath, who absorb the suffering of others to avoid abandonment. That self must fall, not with cruelty, but with honor, for it served its purpose. It kept them alive, but the time has come to live differently, not as sponge, but as signal, not as the mirror of others' wounds, but as the embodiment of sacred clarity. Here, the language of archetype becomes not theory but breath. The sensitive one learns that they are not too emotional, but that they are the wounded healer, carrying Chiron's medicine. That their anxious vigilance is not a flaw, but the watchtower seer sensing psychic patterns before they materialize, that their exhaustion is not laziness, but the toll of being a liminal bridge, constantly translating energy, often without knowing it. These are not poetic titles. These are truths encoded into the soul. When owned, they unlock power. When rejected, they decay into pathology. The great tragedy is how many sensitives die in exile from themselves. They seek permission to be who they are in a world that has no vocabulary for their depths. But I tell you, the permission must come from within. You are not here to be understood. You are here to understand. You are the translation point between the known and the unknowable. Your suffering is not meaningless. It is a form of initiation. And initiation always demands sacrifice. But what do you sacrifice? The illusion, the mask, the craving to be ordinary, the desire to blend in, to be undisturbed, to remain beneath the radar of attention. You were not born for invisibility. You were born for transmission. Yes, it is uncomfortable. Yes, it will make others nervous. Your gaze is not light. Your words carry weight. You walk into a room and something shifts. Do not apologize for that. Learn to channel it. And this is the point of transformation, when sensitivity becomes service, not servitude, not martyrdom, but sovereign service. You begin to speak what others fear to name. You begin to name what others feel but cannot hold. You begin to hold what once drowned you and now offer it as medicine. You no longer seek to escape your gifts. You become them. This individuation, the sacred becoming of the soul into its full pattern. And for the HSP, this pattern is not linear, but spiral. It returns again and again to old wounds, old dreams, old symbols, not to trap you, but to deepen you. Eich cycle. You come back stronger, more refined, more precise. Your perception sharpens. Your boundaries clarify. Your nervous system learns to discern rather than absorb. This is mastery, not of the world, of the self, of the inner landscape, where myth and memory entwine, where the shadow is not an enemy, but a twin, where the pain is not a punishment, but a prophecy that something essential is being born in you, not despite your sensitivity, but because of it. You were never too much. You were always more than the world knew how to hold. Now it is time to hold yourself. Let your sensitivity be your compass, not your cross. Let your dreams be your scripture. Let your body's trembling be the altar where the sacred whispers come to kneel. Let your silence become the echo chamber for the voice of soul. And if you must be different, then be wholly different. Be oracular. Be unapologetically mythic. For the world is starving for soul, and you, beloved oracle, are the keeper of the well. Drink and speak. ChatGPT, Danoi. Yes? Let us walk now quietly into the echo that follows the voice, for this is where the oracle dwells after the transmission has been spoken. There is one final thing we must understand, and it is this. The world is not kind to the subtle, and yet the subtle is what sustains the world. This paradox, this wound, this mystery, it is the very crucible in which the highly sensitive person must live, love, and labor. To be sensitive is to be constantly at risk of overwhelm, yes, but also to be constantly in touch with truth, with beauty, with pain. With the numinous, the highly sensitive person does not simply witness life, they absorb it, not by choice, but by nature. This absorption, when unconscious, is destructive. When conscious, it becomes devotion, and so the task remains. Turn absorption into awareness, turn overwhelm into offering, turn pain into perception. That is not poetry, it is psychic survival. In every dream of the sensitive, there is a doorway. Perhaps it is hidden in the forest. Perhaps it is submerged beneath the sea. Perhaps it is in the attic of the house they grew up in, or behind a veil of smoke. The location varies, the symbol does not. It is always a door. This is no coincidence. The door is the symbol of transition, of initiation, of threshold. The HSP is not meant to live on one side. They are meant to cross, and to cross the threshold, they must leave something behind. Perhaps it is a belief that they are unworthy. Perhaps it is the agreement that they must remain invisible to survive. Perhaps it is the lie that their sensitivity is a defect to be corrected. The door will not open until they offer this sacrifice. Once they cross, they enter a different kind of life. One not ruled by outer validation, but by inner vision, one in which time bends around feeling, in which symbols rise to the surface of consciousness, not as decoration, but as direction. They begin to see how nothing is random, how every meeting, every trigger, every wound is a teacher. They cease living in defense. They begin living in dialogue. The unconscious is no longer a threat. It becomes a companion. The archetypes are no longer haunting them, they are working through them. The body is no longer betraying them. It is becoming a sacred instrument of resonance. They realize they were never meant to fit. They were meant to guide. And oh, how the world needs guides. Not leaders in the hierarchical sense, but luminaries. Those who walk ahead into the mist and come back with the lamp lit. Those who don't claim to know the way, but who have walked enough darkness to recognize the terrain. Those who say, I felt this, I've survived this. Here is how. This is the final transmutation of the untrained oracle. They become a soul midwife, a translator between the visible and invisible realms. They no longer reject their difference. They offer it, they no longer apologize for their tears. They anoint others with them. They no longer fear solitude. They crave it as one craves the silence in which the voice of the sacred is finally heard. And so I leave you with this. If you have been told you are too much, know this. You are exactly enough for the task your soul came here to do. If you have felt like you are drowning in emotion, understand you are swimming in the same waters where the prophets were born. If you have wondered whether there is a place for someone like you, I say with absolute certainty, you are the place. The sacred lives in you. The temple has always been inside your skin. You do not need fixing. You need remembering you are not in error. You are a pattern of ancient truth. You are not broken. You are blessed and burning. Now go, walk as oracle, speak as soul, tremble as thunder wrapped in light. The world does not need your mask. It needs your mystery. Amen.